June 6th, 2022. It's Monday night. I was thinking, how often in your life have you come across a situation when something that catches your attention that might have been around in your periphery for a very long time, but didn't really catch your attention to the point where you would pay attention to it? What brought that up is that there's a book called The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho that I have heard about for a very, very long time. And I've heard good reviews, good things about it. And I've often thought about, well, I'll get to read it one of these days. It sounded like a good book, but I never really was attracted to it. And then this past Saturday, I was in Old Town Spring and I saw it in the window of a bookstore. It said new and used books. So I just went and grabbed it. I didn't realize it was a new copy and I paid full price for it, which I don't mind because I'm always willing to support local businesses over someone online. That's just uh, that's me because I have a business that I run locally, and I would love local people to support my business rather than uh, those online. But I haven't started reading it. Well, I read the preface, and I was just starting to read when something came up, and so I haven't really got into the book. But I intend to read it, and I know I'll enjoy it because I love reading that type of book, and I've heard about it for years that it's a great book in that genre. Back in 1988, 89, somewhere in there, I started reading a book called The Road Less Traveled by M. Scott Peck. It was a good book. The interesting thing is that when I started reading the book, I was living in Houston, Texas. I had gotten married a couple of years earlier, and I started reading the book. But the book was given to me by someone in the early to mid 1980s, 83, 84, somewhere in there, when I was living in Chicago. And it sat on my bookshelf in my apartment in Chicago. I never read it, it was just there. And then from Chicago, I moved to Austin, and the book came with me to Austin. And then from Austin, I moved to Houston after I got married. And the big book came along with all my other belongings to Houston. When I started reading the book back in 89, late 88, early 89, I realized that even though the book had been sitting on my shelf or in my belongings for such a long time, and I was just getting to read it, but it was the perfect time. Had I tried to read the book 5 years earlier when it was given to me as a present, I probably wouldn't have been interested in it, and I definitely wouldn't have enjoyed it, and I might have abandoned it after a chapter or two, which wouldn't have been very helpful because when I finally read it, it made a lot of sense. I enjoyed reading it. It broadened my thinking and opened my mind to different possibilities. And it created an interest in me for human psychology and personal growth. And that led me to reading different books along the line, books with Carl Jung, and led me to listen to people like Nightingale Conant, Oral Nightingale, and Wayne Dyer, and Brian Tracy, and Dennis Waitley. And I got interested in personal development, and I've been interested in for a very long time, since early mid 80s. So the point that I was trying to make is simply this: everything happens when the time is right, and it never happens before it. And if it does, it wouldn't have the impact that it needs to have. So often when I share things on Facebook, I get comments from friends. I needed to read that today. And it is also true for me. I come across something and say, bam, this is what I needed to read today. This is what I needed. How often has that happened to you when the right message shows up in your life at the right time? That's how the universe works. Another example was a affirmation that I came across. And I thought, it's a good affirmation, but it didn't really appeal to me. It was a small affirmation, uh, but nothing exciting about it. 2 weeks later, under different circumstances, I heard about the same affirmation and the same affirmation and the story behind it. And suddenly it made a lot of sense and it appealed to me. It excited me and I started using it and it has impacted me. The affirmation was introduced by Mike Dooley that impacted his life. He said he used to walk around repeating that affirmation when he was younger. He said he would be walking around going, I'm a happy spiritual international millionaire. I'm a happy spiritual international millionaire. And if you know anything about Mike Dooley, yes, he is a multimillionaire. And he talks about being happy and spiritual. And he has traveled all over the world teaching. He writes what is known as Notes from the Universe. And he's written several books, including Infinite Possibilities. He coaches, he teaches. So the point is, as the old saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. What has been your experience? When was the last time that a teacher showed up in your life at the right time with the right message in a right format that it appealed to you in the right way and made an impact in your on your life? My goal with these daily recordings is simply that, to put it out there and hopefully, hopefully, when the right person needs to hear it, somehow the universe will guide them to this place, to that particular recording, and maybe we'll have an impact on their lives. Because I've had people reach out to me in the past after listening to something that I had said in a place where I wasn't even the leader of the program that was being recorded. I was a participant, but my story impacted some people who reached out to me and wanted to know how it happened and what I did, and would I share it with them? Would I coach them, help them? And it was wonderful. I liked it. I was able to help them guide in a way that was satisfactory for them. And I hope to continue doing that. That I find joy in helping people, sharing what I have learned in my life and how my life has been impacted by things that I have learned, things that I have read, things that I've heard, and things that I have said, not knowing that I was saying it. We all say things that sometimes surprise us. And I have been surprised with things that I have said without knowing that I had said it until somebody reminded me that I had said it. To make the long story short, uh, life goes on, and whatever you need, whenever you need it, it will be there at the right time, right place, in the right manner. When I stopped worrying about how things will work out and just surrendered, knowing that whatever I need, whenever I need, will be there for me, first and foremost, I found happiness. Uh, Stress was not something that I was much concerned about most of the time. I mean, it did not, I'm not a person who gets stressed about things, but I found joy in surrendering to the universe, surrendering to the will of God, if you may. And it has been fun. It has been very rewarding. So let it go. Let the worries go because it never, never, ever comes to fruition in a positive way. Everything you need will always be there when you need it. It is already there before you need it, and you will find it when the need arises. Have a blessed evening, and I shall speak to you tomorrow.